this is the Bien family. They live in Oakton, Virginia, so they're locals practically. And we have Greg, we have Diana, and we have Marina, who is 17, and they're going to talk about how it was to go through the diagnosis of their daughter as a family, because it is a family affair, if you will. So I'm going to turn the mic over to them, and they're going to talk about their story and how it affected their family. Whoever wants to start.
So thank you all for having me today. And especially to those of you who have helped me through this journey. I just wanted to give you a brief overview from my perspective of my vision loss, and then I'll turn it over to my parents. So as many of you can imagine, I want you to imagine a world where your life is a pointillism painting, where everywhere you look looks like the static on an old TV screen. On November 17th of 2014, I went to sleep, and the next morning I woke up legally blind. My central vision was too broken up to read, to recognize my best friend in the hallway, or to even see myself in the mirror. From November to June of the following year, I traveled the country with my parents, searching for the answer to my blindness. Most doctors threw their hands up in the air, clueless to the cause of my vision loss, until one day, a doctor saw in an OCT bilateral optic atrophy. The reason for this was LHON, Leber's hereditary optic neuropathy, the disease that causes the optic nerve to partially die. As humans, we all know what it feels like to have a broken heart. It's fresh, it's painful, and most significantly, it is lonely. We don't realize how important that person was to us until we are alone. When I was diagnosed with LHON, it was extremely lonely due to the rareness of the condition. My friends would joke about how closely I would look at my schoolwork, and I would laugh along, but the pain of my blindness was so fresh it just hurt. Just because I lost some of my vision, it didn't mean that I lost my capacity to feel. Around May of 2015, I realized that I was able to see a bit better. I was now able to read and see people more clearly than before. The damage to my optic nerve was still just as severe, but it seemed as though the nerve cells that were in the midst of dying had been saved. Some of my vision was now better, and I am no longer legally blind. Although my world still is, and always will be, static, I have learned to live with it. I can now read better, and it is difficult, although it is difficult for me to read at a distance, and it is still difficult for me to recognize people unless they are closer to me. I may have lost some of my vision through this journey, but I don't see this as a journey of loss. I see it as a journey in which I found myself.
Good. Thank you.
So as I'm Marina's mom, and as Marina mentioned, November 17th, 2014 was the day that changed our lives, especially for Marina. Prior to that, in 2010, Marina was diagnosed with juvenile myoclonic epilepsy, and she was put on Lamictal, which is to control the seizures. Everything was fine for 4 years, and prior to her vision loss, she was also given Solidyne, which is in the family, minocycline family. Marina was a happy high school kid, very passionate about music, playing piano, violin, very dedicated to playing tennis. And then within a week, she could no longer read, and she could no longer see the tennis ball or read the music. So the day she started complaining of vision loss, we immediately took her to see a pediatric ophthalmologist in our area. And he did a thorough examination of her, dilated her eyes and looked in the back, said everything looked normal, and sometimes these things happen and resolve themselves. He also said as we were leaving, he turned to Marina and said, be good to your parents. So with that, we were so focused on Marina's vision. The next step we did was contact her neurologist, and we asked for an MRI to be performed, and the MRI came back normal. There was no lesions that they found. Unfortunately, the MRI was not an orbital MRI, which probably would have been a better option at that point. So after seeing the pediatric ophthalmologist, and after the neurologist gave us that normal MRI reading, I asked him what we should do next, the neurologist, and his response was psychiatry. So my husband and I were so desperate for answers, and Marina's vision was getting worse quickly. So we went to Children's Hospital of DC in hopes that the pediatric ophthalmologist there was able to see something different in Marina that she may have seen with other rare cases. But unfortunately, we had the same sort of experience. She did run an OCT and a visual field. The visual field, I think, was, well, I know was abnormal, and the OCT, from what we understand, was normal. So, but there was a lot of personal questions asked of her, you know, stress at school, stress with friends, family. And so as we were leaving, I noticed in the notes, it said very suspicious of malingering. So we were at that point very frustrated. I think Marina being a girl, it didn't lead to doctors going in the direction of Leber's, because it happens to boys more than it happens to girls. So at that point, my husband and I made the decision to change our medical team, and we went with Johns Hopkins. We went with a neurologist there who was pretty certain, like 70 to 80% sure, that the epilepsy medication, Lamictal, was partly the reason for her grainy vision. And so we were weaning off of one medication onto a different medication for that, and to see if eventually her vision would get better. At the same time, we were given an ophthalmologist at Johns Hopkins who ran some of his tests, ran a VEP and an MFERG, which later we found out the VEP was abnormal, but we weren't told that till later because of the subjectivity of the test. So the ophthalmologist believed that Marina was suffering from a conversion disorder, which is like a psychological disorder that manifests physically. I mean, you could be blind, you could not be able to walk, those types of things. So we were seeing, he suggested we see psychiatry at Johns Hopkins. So we decided, my husband and I decided that there could be no negative effects of that. So we'd see psychiatry, psychology, counseling to get on with daily living, to do things and to be positive. And it was helpful. And Marina's vision slowly started to get better around April, May of 2015. Then, and school was very difficult, but they were very supportive. So there was a lady at school who recommended that we see a retinal specialist in our area. So at the end of school, 3 days after school ended, we checked that off our list. Marina and I went, and this doctor dilated her eyes and immediately saw optic atrophy. So now we had an organic cause for her vision loss, no longer a conversion disorder, psychological, psychiatric disorder. So that led us to a whole different group of doctors. And my husband will talk about the tests that we took and the doctors that we see.
Yeah, I'm going to go through the journey. I'm also going to talk about some of the psychological effects with a girl, with young people, with a family on this, because it's pretty impactful. And, you know, there's also the other issue, and I don't know if you've experienced, it's very hard, and we live in DC, but it's very hard to find a neuro-ophthalmologist who knows what they're talking about. I mean, it really, you're searching, and then there's months waiting list, your child can't see, and you've got to, you know, you've got issues, and, you know, we're not willing just to accept things. So through a friend, it had been through a friend, we were going to California, and he put us in touch with a neuro-ophthalmologist, Dr. Krause, who saw the same thing as the other person.
It's emotional. He gave us some pretty bad news. He thought maybe she could go totally blind, And we were shocked. It was just shocking.
Right. So anyway, then we saw Dr. Katz in Bethesda, and then we saw Dr. Newman. And Dr. Newman said it was a complicated case. She had classic presentation of LHON. So we went through 4 different genetics tests, which is interesting and a little frustrating because we want to get to the end game. So we went through Athena Diagnostics, which was the 3 tests, and 3 mutations, thank you. Then Nancy Newman ran the full mitochondrial panel through Emory. Then we went to the Cleveland Clinic. So far it's -3, full mitochondrial. We went to the Cleveland Clinic with Dr. Som Parikh, and that was through Cortigen. And also financially, it adds up, and you have to fight the insurance each level across the way. It was also negative. Then, throughout this, then we ended up going through a geneticist, Marnie Folk, out of CHOP. So you see, we have a whole tour here. We saw lots of cities, by the way, so along our tour. Atlanta, Los Angeles, Cleveland, Baltimore, D.C., and we honestly would have gone anywhere. So then we ended up getting the full genome panel sequence, and honestly, it still came back negative on it. So Marine is unique in the respect that we've been diagnosed. We also have Dr. Sadoun in Los Angeles because we tend to go there more often for the, we have family there and that's where we're from. And he says classic LHON symptoms. So candidly to this team, we also have another neuro-ophthalmologist who says, you know what, it could be optic neuritis. And at the same time, so, we've had a major journey, and we've seen, the best doctors that we could find or who would see us, candidly, on this. And, so we've, phenomenal doctors, they're smart, they know everything. Probably one of the biggest challenges through, quote, this journey is we have never been able to get these phenomenal brains talking with one another on a single case. And that has been, and I don't know how to do that because there literally is a waiting list to see each one of these doctors. So I'm not sure how to make that happen. Somehow I always felt if I could get the greatest brains in a room, they may come up. Oh, we also saw Dr. Grant Liu at a CHOP. Another neuro-ophthalmologist. If these greatest brains, and I don't know how to do it, candidly, and I respect why it's so difficult because of the time commitment, and they have their phenomenal expertise, but we never were able to do that, candidly, and to do it. And so instead, we travel and go from doctor, our doctor with our book and our expanding book and our expanding book, and recreating the wheel every single time. It's frustrating, and it's hard on Marina, and more for a girl, a teenage girl, and it's very frustrating. I mean, we went through, okay, she has conversion disorder, and candidly, that put us on a bad path when we were seeing the psychiatry, and Diana mentioned just at CHOPA, we were also seeing the, quote, conversion specialist of the world, and, whatever. The dead net of it was, we walk in, she can't see, there's nothing organic, guess what, team, she has conversion. Gee, that was helpful. A lot of cynicism there, but what happened was that bled over to the organic doctors. And that really, so it was a big negative because they weren't listening to her. They weren't sensitized enough. They were classifying her as a teenage girl, whatever, drama queen. Mm-hmm. And so now here's Marina. So this is where the empathy comes in. She can't see, and people are telling her, oh no, you can see, it's just in your head. And then on top of that, she has seizures because parents looking for a thing went to other doctors, and we changed her epilepsy medicine, and during the conversion, she's having seizures. So kind of a trifecta here. And I think that's where she said, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So she's tough as steel now. But, so what, is there a lesson for everyone else is, there are angels out there who will help you. And you have to ask for them. And if you ask, people will help. We discovered LHON through it wasn't even diagnosed. We went on the website, we looked at the conditions, we saw Jeremy's story.
Yeah.
It's how we found it. We were on vacation in California, in Pismo Beach, and we saw Jeremy's story. And Diana ran, and Lissa was phenomenal, reached out, and
We were on Idebenone right away.
no, here's the funny part. We ran up and I didn't know Idebenone from a hole in the ground. Oh, it's CoQ10. I'll just go to the local organic Whole Foods. And we ended up, I had no idea that you can only get in 2 spots, now 1 spot in the United States. So we went all over the country, all over the state of California, calling pharmacy after pharmacy in Los Angeles. All right, figured they would have it. Didn't even know it, half to know it existed.
Yeah.
So the challenge is there was so much, honestly, financial waste, emotional capital, and the takeaway is what this group is doing is so phenomenal because it gives people a quick resource not to go through all their pain, to focus their efforts. And candidly, we had, and this is where my heart breaks, we had the financial resources to go on tour, to find the best doctors, to buy the Idebenone, to do whatever it takes. Not everyone does it, but they love their kids just as much. So, anything we can do to shorten it is kid. Questions?
Yeah, yeah. And you're absolutely right. Anything we can do to shorten that medical mystery tour, as I've called it, is key. Because if you've talked to anyone who's gone through all this, such as the Band family, there are some really crazy stories out there. It doesn't just, oh, I know this is LHON. It is very rare to have happened on your first visit to a doctor. Very rare. So, yes, are there any questions for the family?
Yes, thank you. I have a question. Girls are underdiagnosed often in many things, and I was wondering if you think that maybe it's not just a condition for men, but that they're more diagnosed as young boys because they're pursuing more doctors for the boys than they are for the girls.
I think the perception is more than that, I really think the perception is teenage girls come with a preconceived notion that they're all drama queens, to be honest, at this age. I think if it happened to her at 9 or it happened to her at 21, it wouldn't. But when it happened to her at 14, 15, they immediately zeroed in on whatever. I mean,
They
please.
mentioned, the ophthalmologist did mention, many of them said that they see this all the time in this age group of girls. And that there must be something that she was suffering from at school or at homecoming or problems with friends. So a lot of them do see this a lot, and that's obvious. And I think because Marina is just at that age and she was a girl, that's where they put her, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone
And
else?
also, they didn't see the damage in her nerve.
Hi. I just had a question for you. I wasn't sure if you had said that you zoned in on the exact mutation, and have you educated these ophthalmologists that sent you down this road to the actual diagnosis for this beautiful young lady?
Thank you.
Girl, maybe?
There is no actual mutation
Diagnosed yet.
diagnosed yet. We've done all we can as far as testing. The next step is the biopsy, muscle biopsy, which we are considering. What was your other question about? Oh, did we go back to the doctors? We went back to 2. It was very emotional. It was very hard to do that. I asked one. He said, I did you wrong. He apologized, which was very healing to us to hear that. The second one was not so apologetic, but realized that it was a good experience for him to know that, this is rare, and it was a good educational experience to him, and that they had to look further on or order different tests.
And I want to convey one important thing, and it's a sad state of affairs, really. is Diana went to one appointment with one of these doctors, I won't even say the hospital. I could not go, because, you know, doctor after doctor between the epilepsy and, you know, still had to pay the insurance. So she was blown off, and I really think there was a little bit of sexism in that. That mother-daughter coming in, there's this hysteria, and it really...
I was really hysterical.
Right, and she was hysterical because she didn't know.
When my daughter couldn't see.
But because there wasn't enough, and it's terrible, but I'm just saying, I think there was sexism that this doctor at this renowned hospital didn't take her as serious because I wasn't there that one time. And so I think the important thing is go as a team if possible. I think that's important because one person may be one thing, and that's some other advice I would give on this one. But I think that's a fact. Were there other factors? I don't know. I wasn't there. But I do believe that was part of it.
Yeah. Are we time to wrap it up?
I had the same issue. I was diagnosed when I was, I was infected, started becoming infected when I was 16. My diagnosis actually, since in 2000, I didn't actually get a diagnosis until 2005, when they finally stopped saying it was psychological, and they finally stopped saying it was everything else in the teenager, high school. Parents are going through separation, so
Right,
it's all mental, it's all mental.
Right.
And so I didn't get it for 5 years, and it's a very similar situation. I went to so many different doctors. My mom was getting frustrated, and unfortunately, since my parents were getting separated, it was my mom there a lot too, and they were just like, "Oh, you're just overreacting," and a lot of
Right.
stuff like that as well. So
It's unfortunate, yes.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know, do we have time for any more questions, Melissa? Okay, 2 more questions? Oh, if we
Hey,
don't?
Mom.
We
Molly,
don't.
Molly has a comment, question.
Molly has a comment or question?
Yeah, or comment. Oh my gosh, I was like so teared up. Just because I got to talk to Diana and Marina yesterday, like, because like I am Marina's age and I totally understand the whole like, everyone just thinks you're a drama queen. Oh, you're just overreacting.
Yeah.
Like that's complete baloney. And going through like my mom's vision loss, I was a freshman. I was 15 years old, starting high school, and most of my friends like didn't even believe me. Like, oh, your mom's not blind, because they've known her all my life, and it's just hard when people don't believe you or you don't know anyone in the community. So especially like meeting Jeremy and Lissa and all these other people has been like so helpful. And as like relating you from like as a family member, loved one, like
Oh,
I totally get it.
we know you do. We do.
It's just hard. Yeah, no.
Oh, great, just
So
super.
I totally empathize with you. I totally understand.
Thanks, Mom.
Okay, thanks. Can someone close this up? I want to thank our panel members, the gentlemen who were up here before in the Bien family. It takes a lot to get up here and just lay it all out there. As you can see, it can be very emotional for folks attending and for folks up here as well. It's a hard journey and a hard story to get through, but we have a lot of really positive stories, and it gives anyone in the audience or in the attendees hope that, you know what, you have to be your own advocate. There are good things that can be done, and you can live a very fulfilling life and be married and have children and all that good stuff. So that's why we love doing these panels, so that we can bring you these stories so that you know you're not alone out there. So thank you very much.
So I appreciate Maria so much for organizing these panels of folks, and for each speaker for sharing. Obviously, each person's journey is so challenging, so interesting, so different, so emotional. And it's, as you saw, it's just so hard to share, but it's so helpful to share, because each journey is different. Sometimes it's a clear path to a mutation, and sometimes it's a long journey. Everyone is challenging, interesting, difficult, hard. The doctors are striving so hard to get to the right diagnosis at the right time, and sometimes it goes smoothly, sometimes it's a challenge, and we all struggle through as we go through it. But it's just a hard process, and again, thanks to everyone for sharing their stories, because everyone takes away something from what we just heard.